My phone vibrated while I was folding laundry in the living room. My cousin's name appeared on the screen, and before I even opened the message, my chest already felt a little heavy. I took a slow breath before reading the message. I understood every word, but I already knew that whatever I replied would never feel easy. I set my phone down without answering and simply sat there in silence. I wasn't thinking about the amount of money, but about everything that might change afterward. I could hear Mira laughing with Armand in the next room, and the house still felt warm. Yet the message in my hand carried a quiet weight I couldn't ignore. My name's Clara, and I used to believe that saying yes was simply what a good person should do. Then I realized that saying yes to everyone could sometimes mean saying no to my own family. The next morning felt normal. I packed Myra's lunch, Armand made coffee, and we laughed about burnt toast, but my mind kept returning to the message I still hadn't answered. As Armand left, he noticed I was still holding my phone. I said it was just a message, and he quietly nodded, trusting I would talk when I was ready. After the house became quiet, I opened our monthly budget. Every dollar already had a purpose, and I realized lending money would reduce the security we had worked so hard to build. I remembered another time when a friend asked to borrow money. I sent it without much thought because helping someone felt like the right thing to do. Months passed, but the money never came back. Even harder was how every meeting became awkward, as though we were both avoiding the same unfinished conversation. Since then, every message beginning with "sorry to bother you" has made me stop and think, because I know those words often lead to a difficult decision. I closed the budget book and looked at our family photo. One question stayed with me all day. If helping someone costs my family's security, is it still truly helping? After picking Mira up that afternoon, I still hadn't replied. I wasn't avoiding the message. I wanted my decision to come from calm, not guilt. At home, I made a cup of tea and read the message again more slowly. I imagined how hard it was to ask for help, and my heart felt even heavier. I wondered if saying no meant I didn't care. Then I realized kindness isn't always measured by how quickly we say yes. I opened our family budget again. Those savings no longer looked like numbers. They felt like the quiet security protecting our family. One thought unsettled me. I often felt guilty for not helping others, yet rarely questioned risking my own family's security. That night, I told Armand about the request. Instead of asking how much, he asked how I was feeling, and I finally felt understood. I admitted I feared disappointing them if I refused and losing our peace if I agreed. Armand reminded me that maybe the answer was helping without hurting our own home. The next morning, Armand's words stayed with me. I kept thinking, help without hurting our own home, and wondered if lending money was the only way to help. Around noon, my cousin called and quietly shared that he had lost his job and bills were piling up. I listened without interrupting because his voice carried only exhaustion. After the call, I felt certain he wasn't taking advantage of us. Knowing his struggle was real only made the decision more difficult. That afternoon, Mira noticed I looked sad. I told her I was trying to decide how to help someone. Mira smiled and said that when her friend falls, she helps them stand instead of carrying them forever. I quietly thought about her words. I hugged Mira, wondering if the best kind of help is the kind that helps someone stand again instead of creating dependence. That night, I opened my notebook and wrote the bridge policy. Before anything else, one sentence came to me, and for the first time, I felt I was finding the answer I had been searching for. The days felt normal again. I took Mira to school, watched Armand leave for work, and kept seeing my cousin's message while waiting to answer with a calm heart. While cleaning the kitchen, I reopened my notes on the bridge policy. I wondered if lending money would solve the problem, or simply delay it. Old memories returned. I thought about people who had borrowed money before and questioned whether they had really needed more than cash. That afternoon, Armand and I shared tea on the porch. When I asked what truly helps people, he smiled and said, maybe not always money, maybe an opportunity. I kept thinking about that word all night. An opportunity seemed far more valuable than money, even though I was still reflecting on it. I read my cousin's message again with a new perspective. I realized I wanted to help in a way that lasted, not just offered temporary relief. That night, I added another sentence beneath the bridge policy. As I looked at it, I felt those few words quietly changing how I understood generosity. The next day, Mira came home with a drawing of 2 children crossing a bridge. As she explained its purpose, I quietly smiled and listened. Myra wondered what would happen if the bridge broke. Her simple reminder that a bridge must be strong stayed with me long afterward. That night, I kept thinking about her drawing. A bridge helps people move forward, but it is never meant to become where they stay. I opened my notebook and wrote bridge policy. I listed conditions to make sure my support helped someone without risking my own family's security. The next morning, I called my cousin. Instead of giving an answer, I asked about the plans, job interviews, and what was truly needed. As we talked, I realized the biggest need wasn't a large loan. It was help with transportation and daily essentials while the job search continued. I ended the call feeling much lighter. I finally understood the difference between carrying someone's burden and helping them keep walking on their own. After talking with my cousin, I didn't decide right away. Sitting quietly by the window, I realized this wasn't about kindness or cruelty, but about responsibility. I opened our family budget again. The savings no longer looked like numbers. They felt like promises to protect my family's future. One thought became clear. Saying no to someone can also mean saying yes to my family's security, and both can be true. I read my cousin's message again before replying. Wanted to be honest without sounding cold or making promises I couldn't keep. I wrote that I truly wanted to help, but I couldn't lend that amount because protecting our emergency fund had to come first. Instead, I offered help with transportation, improving the CV, and finding job opportunities together. I couldn't solve everything, but I wanted to support the journey. After pressing send, my heart was still racing. I feared losing the relationship, yet I also felt peace because my decision came from love, not guilt. That night, I told Armand about the message I had finally sent. As we shared warm tea, I admitted I still felt both relief and fear. I confessed I was afraid of disappointing them. Armand gently reminded me that protecting my family didn't make me selfish. He looked at our family photo, and I quietly understood what he wanted me to see without saying another word. His words brought tears to my eyes. I realized I had measured myself by how much I gave instead of how well I cared for my own home. I showed Armand my notebook titled The Bridge Policy. As I read each line aloud, he listened with a quiet smile. We talked about the kind of people we wanted to become, caring, willing to listen, and present even when money wasn't the answer. Before bed, Armand held my hand and said he was proud of me. I smiled, knowing the bridge policy had changed how I cared for others without forgetting my first responsibility. 2 days later, my cousin thanked me. She said listening before judging made her feel respected, and I quietly felt a sense of relief. A week later, we met to improve her CV, search for jobs, and discuss new skills. That hope felt more valuable than any large loan. A few weeks later, she told me she had found a job. Reading her message, I smiled as tears almost filled my eyes. That night, Mira asked if my cousin was happy now. I smiled and said she was working again, and Mira quietly replied, "The little bridge worked." Soon after, someone else asked to borrow money. This time, I calmly asked myself if my help could become a bridge before deciding. Looking back, I realized the greatest change wasn't in our finances. It was within me, where healthy boundaries no longer felt like rejection. Before bed, I watched Mira sleeping and made one quiet wish that if she ever helped someone, it would come from love, not fear of being seen as a bad person. The biggest shift in how I think came when I realized that helping someone does not always mean lending money. Sometimes it means listening, giving my time, helping them look for a way forward, offering encouragement, or simply staying beside them for a while. I also learned that protecting my family's finances is not a selfish choice. Keeping our home secure does not mean I care less about other people. Our bridge policy became a simple question I asked before offering financial help. If the answer is no, I look for another way to support them, because care does not always come through money. Today, I believe people are not measured by how often they say yes. Sometimes helping means giving, sometimes it means saying no gently, and sometimes it means walking beside someone until they can move forward on their own. Before we part, I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever lost a friendship or family relationship because of lending money, and how do you set your boundaries today?